if every person that I signed up came to me and asked for 18 additional $1,000 on a project, I would be out of business.
Right.
It's not sustainable. Well, it's the market, it's this, it's that. It's, okay, let's understand that, because when I locked into pricing, read the contract, you said you were going to lock in and you were going to secure that material at that time. Well, they don't bill until it ships. That's your problem.
Put that coffee down.
I'm not here to waste your time, okay? I certainly hope you're not here to waste mine. So I'm going to keep this short.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Coffee's for closers only.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Behind Your Back podcast with me, Bradley Hartman, founder and CEO of the Behind Your Back Sales Company, where our mission in life is to help you sell more, faster, at higher margins, delivering value first, and have more fun doing it. That's what we do every day. As for this podcast, we talk about leadership, personal productivity, time management, and the craft of selling in the construction industry. And this episode today is brought to you by our friends at Capital One Trade Credit. We are thrilled to have them as our presenting sponsor. Why? Because we believe in many of the same things. Like what, you ask? All right, then, I'll tell you. Like growing sales, increasing cash flow, decreasing risk, and leveraging technology to help your customers build America. And speaking of building America, I'm excited to share with you my conversation with one of my dearest friends on the planet, Mr. Bobby Krueger. Who is Bobby Krueger? In addition to being a returning guest to the pod, he is a principal at Mavrek Development in Chicago. And a couple of years ago, he moved back home to Cleveland to take over his family business known as the Kruger Group. So Bobby has an awful lot going on, and he has a lot of visibility into different aspects of the business, both on the development side and the building side. So I was excited to talk to him about really pricing leverage and where over the last 24 months or so, he has no pricing leverage and in what situations he does. And that was very interesting. I think you're going to get some insights from that. And he also gives some candid perspectives on good and bad methods to sell today. And he's going to give you some ideas about things you should do and should not do, and why for some company that shall remain nameless to protect the guilty, he will never, ever call them again. We talk briefly about what I call the Arya Stark lists. And if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, you may remember Arya Stark. If you're not familiar with Game of Thrones, well, you won't be familiar with the name. Nonetheless, my friend, you will get value from this because there are names and they're going on lists and builders are keeping these, and this is happening. And it's something that you absolutely want to be aware of because in a long enough timeline, this power will shift from the sellers back to the buyers. And we need to be prepared for that. And we need to be able to adapt quickly. So what you do today will certainly resonate with folks into the future. And we make some predictions about many things, extending years into the future that guaranteed we will both be wrong on, including, but not limited to, Bobby's predictions on the Super Bowl and his beloved Cleveland Browns. No comment for here. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Bobby Krueger of Mavrek Development and the Kruger Group. All right, Mr. Bobby Krueger, welcome back to the show.
Yep, good to be here.
I've got my podcasting face on. Are you ready?
I am ready. Whatever you're throwing at me, I'll be prepared.
Wonderful. Excited to talk to you about a couple things specifically. So we're going to jump right in here. You told a wonderful story. We will leave out any sort of identifying names of companies or individuals. However, tell me the story about you, despite theoretically buyers and builders having less pricing leverage now than they really, talked to your father last night who's been in the business for 4 decades. He's like, never experienced this. Despite having little to no leverage in theory, in actuality, you had one conversation where you saved over almost. If you had you accepted it, you would have saved over $300,000. Can you share that story?
Definitely, I can share that story. So there's a couple lessons within this story, and I think I touched on a little bit. But before I dive into the details, I think it's important to note that competition is extremely important no matter what the environment. And my biggest takeaway from this exercise that I went through with the lumber company, 2 lumber companies actually, was you need to have competition, because without the competition, we would not have gotten the best possible pricing. So that's one lesson, one takeaway. Another takeaway within that, and I'll get to the story in a minute, was...
No, I like this. You're inverting it. You're giving me the lessons up front.
I'm giving you the lessons up front. Was also, I'm always transparent. I told these suppliers where I needed them to be.
Yeah.
And when one got there, I awarded them the contract. When the other one didn't get there, I told them why. So from the beginning, I set the goal. I said, this is what we're working towards. And whoever can achieve that goal, I'm going to award the contract to. So I think transparency and following through on the commitment you made to them on the front end is important, right? So we're building a large multifamily market rate apartment building in Cleveland, Ohio. And we started the pricing exercise, I guess, in 2020. So at the start of 2021, we did the lumber pricing. So the lumber pricing come back at 1.6 million. We're like, great, 1.6, it meets the budget. So we all know what happened in 2021, right? Mm-hmm. So January of 2021, some stability within the market. We go to reprice it because we need to place the order about 5 months later, and that 1.6 became 3.2. Holy shit, right? So then this is just one kind of part of the total construction development, right?
For sure.
Anyway.
We'll ignore the fact for now that almost all of your other building material costs have also increased.
Yes.
We'll just focus on lumber.
We can focus on lumber. So in the Cleveland market, there's some players in the market, and I had 3 of them sitting at the table. After we went the repricing route in May of 2021, I whittled that down to 2. Okay. So they set the mark and they said 1.6. In January of 2021, they both were at that 1.6 range. Both went up to 3.2. So I said, guys, we have a couple opportunities here. We can either reconstruct the building, pull out some of the lumber. We can wait. We have the luxury of wait. We can build it differently. Right. So anyway, we decided to go on this roller coaster with them, right? Say, all right, 1.6 is the goal. 3.2 is the high water mark. So we did weekly check-ins, right? Okay, here we are. All right, let's not talk for a couple weeks. Let's not talk for a couple. So get to August of 2021. Okay. We now need to place the order. And we've been slowly trending down, right? Slowly trending down, slowly trending. Okay. So I go to both of them. I go, I need your best and final. So the one company came in best and final, $1,675,000. I'm like, great. We're not there. We're close. The other company came in at $1,975,000.
Okay.
So I got both numbers. After I got the $1,675,000, I'm like, listen, I'm going to price check you against someone else. Talk to the $1,975,000 group, right? And I said, you know what? Is this your best number? Absolutely my best number. Nothing you can do. We can't. Nothing I can do.
Yep.
So, all right, I'm going to go with someone else. Well, why? I'm like, they're $300,000 less than you. Guy's like, give me a minute. He actually called me back. He's like, let me talk to my boss. Talks to my boss. They dropped to $1,650,000. So they dropped $325,000. And I said, where'd you find the $325,000? And he's like, I can't answer that question. I'm like, I appreciate that. But the fact that a moment ago, $1,975,000 was your best number. And then when I told you I was going with the competition, you immediately found $325,000. Out of principle, I am not going with you. And the reason I'm not going with you is like, how can I trust that we're going to have a good working relationship when there was a $325,000 swing in a matter of moments because your competition was at 325. So anyway, that was long-winded, but what I learned in that, like I said at the start, competition's important, and trust, setting the expectation, be like, this is what we're all working towards. So
yeah, the things that jump out to me is I love his candor of, I can't tell you that.
I agree. I appreciate that he didn't want to lie to me.
Yes.
That he realized that he just dropped 325 and whatever explanation was a load of crap.
Well, and the other thing here is, I believe, and again, I only know one side of the story, and you told the story to me essentially just like you did there in 2 minutes, right? Not a whole lot of nuance, and I'm sure there's details on both sides. However, I do believe it was a failure to understand the various scenarios that could come out of this. There are really 2 scenarios that could happen. They either win the business or they lose the business, right? The worst case scenario, if they said, what what would be the absolute worst case scenario? Like in negotiation circles, they'll talk about the BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Okay.
I was there. What about a WATNA? What about your worst alternative? That would be, not only do we lose the business,
Sure.
we also lose trust
Right.
with this individual. And it's one thing you lose the business, say, listen, it's my final number. I'm not budging. If you want to go somebody else, that's fine. We know where we need to be. It's a volatile market. We're experts. Do what you need to do, Bobby. You walk away, at least down the road, they can maintain that relationship. But here you're like, oh, I'm always one phone call away from a couple $100,000 maybe. And I don't know how you recover from that, but I think there's a lot of lessons in there. And I think for people listening, this is something that not only the builders who are listening are dealing with this too, right? But also the suppliers, the distributors, everyone's dealing with this. You got to think through, and quite frankly, just one step ahead. What do you think was going to happen in that phone call?
For sure. The one thing that I want to underscore in this conversation is the 1.6 million was what they originally set the pricing at. Right?
Sure.
So I had a barometer of what we needed to work towards based on where their pricing was originally at. So when we were working back towards that 1.6, it was based on the standard that they set and the pricing that they set, right? So to your point, I don't know how they recover, because every time they're going to give me something from here on out,
right,
I'm always going to question, am I getting the best possible price? Mm-hmm. So it's a tough thing. And, I think in the market, it's a small community in Cleveland. There's only so many players. I will continue to give them the benefit of the doubt, right, but I'm always going to check their pricing, and I'm always going to make sure that they're giving me the best possible price based on what the market is providing.
Yeah. Well, and I don't care if you're in New York. I don't care if you're in LA. I don't care if you're in Cleveland or Chicago. It's always a small industry.
It is, without question.
It's so small. But all right, appreciate that. You also told me another story I'd like you to replay a little bit. You used a wonderful adjective. I want to ask you about that. And this one resulted in largely, maybe it was more than one conversation, but about $100,000 in savings. You were talking to a guy and you said, obviously there was some sophistication of the sales individual, and you kind of chuckled with a little bit of tolerance, maybe a little bit of respect, but you described him as very salesman. What did this individual do, and how did they go about selling you in a way where you felt this was obviously a sales situation versus someone who's trying to help you?
Yeah, I guess a couple things. Some of it is just presentation, how they look, how they act, how they're presenting themselves, right?
Okay.
I think this particular instance, when he came in, they were when I say salesman, they had brochures, a lot of glossy, shiny things.
Okay.
But as we were sitting down having a conversation, they didn't know the mechanics of how some of their stuff was applied or used in the field. Mm. So it's like, oh, well, I got to check with him. I don't know. That's a good question. So throughout that conversation, as you start trying to understand their pricing, what they're providing, mm-hmm, and how, a lot of the conversation was mobilization. It's how many times do you have to mobilize in order to execute the envelope of the building, right? Okay. So as we kept going back to mobilization, they just couldn't answer that question. We got to go to the field guy, right? And that to me immediately all right, this price seems a little high. They don't have a good handle on actually how it gets, the mobilization, how it actually, the function of it. Right?
Well, and what I see you going after, I think this is just a really important lesson for any negotiation for buyers or sellers, is if you understand the cost and you negotiate not just on margin, but on the cost to go into it, i.e., I don't know, how many times do you put up the scaffolding or the thing to do the thing and then to move it?
Yep.
There's material, there's manpower, there's gas, right? What you're talking about are the cost drivers that are going to affect you.
Correct.
If you are going into a meeting with anybody, especially someone who's the principal or owner of a business,
yep,
and you're not prepared for those, well, simply put, it's not good enough.
Correct. It's not. And so we ended up finding a solution that was $100,000 less. And when we talked to the guy, he was an owner operator. Now I realize in this line of work, if you want to scale, if you want to do a certain book of business, you can't be all things to all things, right? You can't be the owner and the operator and expect to grow your business if you're on the job managing it. So I appreciate the difference in that. But I also, if you are selling air, vapor, water barrier, sealing the exterior of a building, you need to have that dead nuts, and you need to be able to break. So what we ended up getting stuck on is the mobilizations, like I mentioned. So the way the sales guy was trying to say it is like, we're going to need multiple mobilizations because you're going to have to seal the windows before you install the windows. Then you're going to have to come back and you're going to have to seal the exterior before you come back and clad the exterior. Where the owner operator is like, no, I've done this a million times. This is the process. This is how it works. And there was a $100,000 delta. And you're like, oh, okay, this guy's actually done it. He knows it and he priced it. And the price was far more favorable. Honestly, we were in a position where we were going to pay the higher price because that's all we knew through many conversations with. It's a very specific niche in this market.
Yeah.
So anyway, the salesman, had he been a little bit better versed in the assembly, the mobilization, how the process works, I think I would have been more willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But
well, and two, again, a lot of nuance here, but
sure,
with your companies, the way you're scaling, at a certain point, it's probably going to behoove you to find partners who can also scale and say, hey,
for sure,
you're building Michigan, you're building Ohio, you're building Chicago, you're building Denver. We're there. We can help you do that. But I think you said something interesting is that, hey, had they been a little more confident and clear on how we would get this done, they would have gotten the sale.
Yep.
At plus $100,000. And if you can, I was blown away. But I guess I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be surprised by people anymore in the sales profession or anything else. I was surprised at how he reacted when you told the salesman guy that because you could save $100,000 and go with an owner operator that you trusted. What was his reaction? The salesman, what was his reaction?
He was not gracious. He essentially said, lose my number, tear up the quote, never call me again. So that was his takeaway, which is unfortunate, but it just validated in my mind.
Right.
I will tear up your quote. I will never call you again, just based on the behavior. So the interesting thing too, the reason we went and sought a second price was based on that meeting with them, walking away. The number was high, but we just didn't feel comfortable in their ability to execute.
Yeah.
So just going back to that point, it's an important thing to do. Had we not just walked away being like, something's a little amiss,
right,
we probably would have signed them up at the 350 number and been on our way and wouldn't know any different. But because of that, we decided to let's take one more look at this.
I think this is a lesson for salesmen, if we're being honest with ourselves, and also sales leaders. What do you think the message was when this guy, salesman, goes back to his manager and he says, I lost the business. He goes, why did we lose it? What do you think his answer was?
It wasn't anything he did. It was us.
Well, my guess is our price was too high. It was $100,000 high, and he found some other guy who's, you know.
I hope he says the price was $100,000 high. But that's an interesting question. I don't know what that dialogue is and how he responds to it, because in my mind, we're all in sales, right?
Yes.
So if I am trying to sell someone and someone comes to me and is like, I can get the same product for $100,000 less, I said, you absolutely take advantage of that opportunity and go do it, right? Mm-hmm. That's my position on it. You know, him and the response he had, hopefully he can articulate that it was price and it was nothing personal, but
yeah, well,
I don't know what he says and sells upstream.
Right. And had he not said, don't call me, I'll never call you, rip up my quote, pretend this never happened. If he said, I'm trying to get better. Yeah. I'm really disappointed we lost this. I put a lot of time in, and hopefully you guys saw some of that and you got some value, even though you didn't go with us. Bobby, if you're being brutally honest with me, what could we have done differently? My guess is, knowing you probably would have been like, well, I'm going to give you the medicine you asked for.
Yeah.
Dude, we walked away from that meeting just not being confident.
Sure.
We talked to this other guy. We have 100% confidence and we could save $100,000. That's why.
That's exactly right.
You know, and he could say, okay, I can get better at that because he lost the sale. He had it. And if you had that meeting and you were confident, you would have paid more, you know, and, you know, knock on wood, hopefully they're good at what they do. You would have never known the difference and you would have gotten a quality product. So it's crazy.
It is crazy. The other thing is that it's funny as I'm like replaying the conversation we met with him in that meeting. He's like, we want to earn all of your business. And then as soon as he didn't get that first job, he's like, beat it. And it's just so funny. It's like, what's your message? Do you really want our business? So had he taken a little bit more gracefully, I would have been like, listen, we have plenty of new work coming online.
Right. Let's
work together to understand how we can bridge this gap to get better pricing from you. And I'd be in a position to award you the job. So
I'd also say just use your observation skills. Like, look at you. You're a handsome young man of 43. And you say, hey, my goal is not to retire at 44.
Sure.
I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. Like, pay attention.
Yeah,
if you have
for
a
sure.
young owner and he's got a growing business and that's, increasingly in the Midwest, these are the people you want to hitch your wagon to.
For sure.
And don't expect to bat 1,000.
For sure.
So relevant to these two stories, Bob, the thing that I'm fascinated about is just this shift that has happened so fast and has been so profound from really the last 40 years, including the Great Recession, has always been the buyers, the builders have the leverage in pricing negotiation. There's lots of competition. There's lots of substitutes. There's lots of available parties for many things in construction. There's low barriers to entry. So there's always a lot of competition, and that generally favors builders. This has swung so far and so fast, but I think you have certain salespeople that think they have 100% of the leverage. Like, you do not have choices. And yet these two situations, and if I'm doing my crude math, $400,000 savings with a couple of phone calls, you do still have quite a bit of leverage. How do you think about that, if at all?
I always think about that. And I think a couple things like I touched on earlier, competition is very important. You got to make sure that you go out to multiple people in the marketplace to understand, all right, is this market? Am I getting a good market price, or am I getting kind of a screw you price? I'm willing to give you the work if you pay that.
Right.
So I think that's important. So that's number one. Number two, you always want to align yourself with the right partners. And I always had this when I'm on conversations, when I meet with subcontractors, suppliers, vendors, I'm like, this is a partnership, right? Even if it's one project, it's still probably a 3-year relationship, right? By the time we had a phone call today with our drywall supplier, we signed him up in August of 2021. He called me this week and said pricing went up $18,000. I'm like, that's awesome. We already signed a contract. So you need to go back to whoever you're getting the drywall and say, we're not paying it. Right. And he's like, well, I can't because, and I was like, listen, we signed a contract. I gave you my word. I signed a contract. You gave me your word, and you have to honor that. Now, the reality is we'll figure it out if we need to figure it out. But I knew I could have a conversation with that partner from the very beginning. I put all my cards on the table, told them what we're about and how we're going to do it. And we worked long and hard to land on a price that was mutually beneficial, right? So it's aligning yourself with the right partners. Now, there's certain things in this market that you absolutely cannot control. And I get that. And I'm sensitive to that. But I need to understand how we got to this result versus, hey, Bob, I got a call today. Price is going up, so you got to pay it. Whoa, hang on. Prices went up today? They didn't give you a couple of months notice?
And it's not me, Bob. I would never do it. I just took the call from somebody else and I'm giving it to you.
Yep. And you know what I say to that? Let's find that person. Let's jump on a call together and we'll work through it. So, I mean, you got to continue to ask questions and push back, because if you just accept, and part of the conversation today is like, if every person that I signed up came to me and asked for $18 additional $1,000 on a project, I would be out of business.
Right.
It's not sustainable. Well, it's the market. It's this, it's that. So, okay, let's understand that, because when I locked into pricing, read the contract. You said you were going to lock in and you were going to secure that material at that time. Well, they don't bill until it ships. That's your problem, right? And I said on the phone during that conversation, like, I'm just doing my job, right?
Sure.
I have to enforce a contract that we signed, that we talked about. So you have to do your job and you got to honor that too. So it's not me being difficult. It's me getting to result on something that we worked long and hard to agree on. So I guess answering your question, just making sure you align yourself with the right partners and you have that dialogue. By and large, vendors, contractors have been very good about January 15th, December 1st. Whatever the date is, it's coming. And we've had the ability to say, listen, let's order all the material now. I'll pay for it now. You can store it, and then we'll ship it. So we've worked collaboratively with all these groups, and I think that's what you have to be. So just partnerships, finding the right people, controlling what you can control, because some of the stuff is totally out of control. But
well, I think what you said there, I think people should really be thinking about on the sales side, is that competition is really important. I'm going to, even if I trust you and I like you and I think everything you've given me is great, I'm going to seek out other people to compete with you. My approach to that is, hey, I would say, Bob, I'm assuming you're planning on probably getting some other pricing. I'm like, yes, I am. I would say, great. Here's a couple things. Here's some questions that in your best interest, and let me walk you through these. Here are questions that I would make sure you ask every single one of them. How can you not only provide more information to your prospect or your potential partner, but you can also frame this relationship. And if you can come and say, hey, Bob, I'll make sure you ask these 5 questions. And you ask these guys these questions and you're like, yeah, these are good questions. They're like, oh, all right. Now that's an interesting one, Bob. Like you can tell when the BS is coming. Now all of a sudden you're like, this guy gave me the questions that are really important.
Right.
I trust this guy more.
Right.
I'm more willing to pay a little bit extra to partner with him because of that trust.
Right.
Question here. Here's a legitimate question. I've called this the Arya Stark principle. You watch Game of Thrones?
I am.
All right. Arya Stark, the daughter, about midway through, she started realizing that she needs a kill list, making names of all the people that she's going to murder in the future.
Yeah.
Love Game of Thrones. Miss it. I don't want to draw too many distinct analogies to our business of building America. However, I've spoken to several individuals who are on the building side, both in commercial construction and residential and remodeling, that have realized in this environment right now, you sometimes do not have the options to get rid of someone you are working with. However, many, many folks are on the buy side right now, are making lists of people that mentally they've already blackballed, making sure there's not the right time for them to cut off their nose to spite their face, right? So they're going to come up with this list of people. Let me ask you this, just a simple yes or no. Do you have an Arya Stark kill list of people that you are going to blackball in the future because of the way they've treated you during this environment of the last, say, 18, 24 months?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, good.
I don't.
Right.
I don't. I definitely know people that do. And there was probably a time in my life that I did, but that takes too much energy.
Okay.
Maybe that's not as juicy but I just, I think about that, there's definitely people I won't work with again, having had certain experiences.
Sure.
But I've had the benefit of identifying quickly who I want to work with, who I don't. And we just don't work with those people.
Yeah. Well, I've had this conversation and a national account salesman who's been in this role for a long time told a national purchasing manager to his face, like, kind of sucks, doesn't it? How does it feel when the shoe's on the other foot? And he said, that's something that you should be thinking and not saying.
For sure.
And he said, we have made a determination internally. As soon as we feel confident, we will blackball them and we will never work with them again. And like these lists are coming here. So, all right. So you do not have an Arya Stark kill list, but other people do.
Other people definitely do. And I think just to touch on that, I think in a previous life, I think the way I do business now is informed by previous kill lists that I probably carried. And what I'm trying to articulate is when we were building for sale product, I think there was a lot more energy about not working with people because of so much emotion in the for sale product versus a for rent or a commercial. Yeah. So I think as I inform myself is that experience wasn't emotionally satisfying. So I'm going to continue to move within the real estate space into something that's still within real estate, but it's not as emotionally, I don't know what the right word is, but so I think my line of work today is different because of those experiences in the past, if that makes sense.
Well, what I hear you saying is on many products, once you get a homeowner involved on $1 million product and you have the contractor and sucks up so much of your time, so much energy that things can get heated really quick and you can make those determinations that what happened here, even though 30 days from now, it'll probably be in the rearview mirror.
Sure.
I will never, ever work with you again. And here's why.
Exactly.
As you get further removed, I guess, from that situation and from those people, there's probably less of that. So
there is. Exactly.
Yeah. And you probably make a hell of a lot more money. So good for you, Bob. Let me ask you this. I often will encourage sales professionals, even if they're relatively young in their tenure or with a newer product, that when they get in front of someone like you, even if for a few minutes, instead of pitching insulation or galvanized nails or whatever the hell they're selling, that asking someone about their goals, especially this time of year, right? 2022, have you set goals? And then I say, what are your goals? What do you think is the biggest opportunity? And what do you think the biggest risk is? And if you can tell me that, even in a short amount of time, that will help me understand, hey, this is where you're going. And then my insulation or my galvanized nails or whatever, I can then see if this fits in one way and ask more questions.
For sure.
The most common response that I get is, who am I to feel confident enough to ask a business owner those questions? And my thought is, dude, that's where everyone's got goals, especially, ambitious people who are running companies. Part of their fiduciary responsibilities, to have goals.
Sure.
And if you can understand those, you're in a better position to see if you can help. How would you feel about that? Would you feel comfortable, even if someone, 23-year-old kind of came in and said, hey, just curious, I know you don't have much time, Bob, just tell me about, what are your goals for this year? What are you guys trying to do? Would you be open to answering that? Or do you feel like, hey, this is beneath you and you would never share this information with someone who's not in your inner circle?
I would definitely share that information. I think it's important to establish and align yourselves with, again, good partners, right? And being a good partner is understanding what they're working towards. So I think I would very much be open to that conversation. Now, I think it's got to be timed right, meaning if you're like cold calling me or you're trying to get a hold of me and then I'm trying to get through something and you're like, hey, so I think it's got to be a little bit more premeditated. Be like, listen, next 2 weeks, we got to book a call. I want to run through kind of our offerings. So I think you have to be a little bit more tactical in terms of scheduling the meeting and walking through it. But I think there's something to be said about aligning yourself and even trying to establish somewhat of a personal connection. It's like, hey, we're all working towards the same thing. How can I help you achieve your goals and me achieve my goals? So I think it's very important. And I had a call today with an architect we've worked the last several years. And in the call, it occurred to me that his son was applying for college. And I brought it up. And George and I we're on calls every week for like the last 3 years. And it just occurred to me. And there was like a 10-minute conversation with him about his son where he's applying. And I think walking away from that conversation, I think we both felt good about recognizing something other than the project we're working on. And anyway, so I think it's just important to establish that rapport, but do it in a tactical way.
Yeah. And I think my advice there would be is you catch Bobby, you're on your way to someplace, you're going to your car. I would say is, hey, you have a brief conversation. I would say is, listen, I mean, what you just said as a script was really good is, hey, I know where we're going as a company in my own career. I'm trying to understand where you are and to see if we might be a fit to collaborate. I don't know that now. I'm not going to presume, but if I get no more than, I like to throw a little curveball to guys like you. 9 minutes, 13 minutes, give you something like 9 minutes. Be a little bit different. And then say, if I could, in that short amount of time, I could ask a couple questions and learn a little bit more. And then I'm not going to waste your time. And we might not be a fit, but I think we might be based on my research. I think you'd probably say 9 minutes, 13 minutes. Yeah, have you been coached by Hartman? Maybe. Fine. Yeah. All right. I might give you that opportunity.
I will. I'll definitely give that opportunity. Now, I won't give, it's funny, and this is a whole different conversation, but LinkedIn, the new year, you're getting these constant requests to be like, hey, I can optimize your sales. I can do this. And that's like constant follow-up. I'm like, I don't know who these people are. So again, being tactical, understanding, providing value, be like, we're in the market. This is something we do. This is something I'd like to present to you. So I think you just have to be thoughtful about that approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was about to say, I actually hope for this sometimes. I don't hope for this. I hope that what they need is something that I provide, and that's real simple. Other times, I'll say, just what's the biggest pain in your neck you're dealing with? They're like, oh my God. Honestly, I'm trying to find a painter to finish my daughter's room.
Yeah.
Like 12 layers of pink. I'm like, that? I can help with that.
Yeah.
I know people. I know someone who knows somebody who can find a painter. And then I can say, tell you what, I'm going to end this phone call right now. Let me see what I can do. Expect a text from me within the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
Don't shut yourself off the possibility from being really helpful in some other way that doesn't, lead you to selling insulation or nails or whatever.
For sure.
All right. I'm watching the time. You're a busy guy. Time for predictions. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Predictions and prognostications, which I believe those are synonyms. Give me, I'm looking for a year and then a month within that year. When will we find that lumber prices per thousand for 6 consecutive months have been below $500?
I think we're probably in March of 2024. So we're probably 2 years away.
I'm saying 6 months. Okay. March of 2024.
Yeah, that's my prediction. Mark it down.
I was going to say, let me break up my Muji .38 gel ink ballpoint pen and write that down. March of 24. All right. Very good. Next prediction. When will the pandemic be done? And we'll just be concerned with the flu. No masks. We're just...
Yeah, for sure. I think it probably goes hand in hand with that first question. I think...
Are you saying you think the pandemic is caused by lumber prices? I'm not sure that's accurate.
Yeah. That's exactly. Lumber prices have caused the pandemic without question. But I think the volatility in the market is based on the pandemic. So what is it? It's January
I think
of
it's based on
2022.
capitalism at this point, but
Yeah,
that's another story altogether.
I honestly think we have another year to kind of get through. So I think, spring of 2023, I think this will start to really be in the rear view. What I learned through this last year is the summer leading into the fall was great. It seemed like vaccinations were out. The world was feeling better. And then we went into the fall, into the winter, into Christmas, and this new variant just kind of brought us all back to the forefront. So I think as these variants have come out, they seem to get milder. So I think that is an indication that we're working towards a world that we're just worried about the flu and things that we've always accustomed to. So my prediction is we'll call it March of 2023.
All right, heavy on the March.
Heavy on the March
Right,
for no reason.
You are married to a doctor, which
I am.
theoretically gives you no more intelligence into your
No,
predictions.
none
but,
actually.
all right. The Cleveland Browns
Yes.
in the Super Bowl. They don't have to win the Super Bowl. They just need to be in the Super Bowl.
For sure. So they're going to be in the Super Bowl. It'll be February of 24. February 24. The one thing that sports, having played team sports growing up, I think an important thing is you got to learn how to win, right? So I think the Browns have lost a lot. Last year, they had a successful season. When I say last year, I mean 2020. They won 11-5, won 2 games in the playoffs. This
They
year,
won 2 games in the playoffs?
oh, excuse me. They beat Pittsburgh, lost to Kansas City.
Thank you.
Yes, you're right.
Fact check that.
Yep, fact check that stuff.
Stat that.
This year they took a step back, but I think they learned throughout this process is they were kind of the Super Bowl favorites preseason and laid a huge turd, right?
Indeed.
But now it's like, all right, we've had some success. Now we're taking our medicine. So I think if you continue to keep that core group of guys, then I think 2023 will be a better year, but I don't think we're going to make it to the Super Bowl to the following
February
season.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
That entire line of thinking, I would agree with if you said it was the Buffalo Bills, because they are learning how to lose in some horrifying ways. But Josh Allen is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a stud.
So,
I mean, it's interesting when I look, it was between Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. And I remember the book on Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming.
Right.
There was just more unknown versus an established quarterback, but you can't teach size, right? Josh Allen's 6'5". He's got an absolute cannon, but
right.
We've seen Jamarcus Russell, right?
This is true.
There's
He
certain
can throw
things
60 yards from his knees.
From his knees.
I'm like, why? Why would anyone need to do that in the game? No, they wouldn't. Yeah, I also, last irrelevant note there, the story I love about Josh Allen is that if you remember his first year, he was an absolute abomination.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And so many people were going to write him off, and he's from Wyoming. He didn't play anybody, and he wasn't that good, and he didn't win a lot, and completed like 50% of his passes. And then from year 1 to year 2, he basically became an all-pro. And you think, well, is it that crazy to think that a 22-year-old could really improve with focus and determination and ambition? No, of course he can. And that's why I'm still bullish on Baker Mayfield. I think,
As am I.
I think he's a tough guy. I think he's a winner. I agree with you. I think he's going to need some time to mature and stay healthy. But I don't think, to be honest, I think your prediction about them in the Super Bowl is asinine and crazy. But that's why I wrote it down right here.
Nice.
Right here.
All right. I'm looking forward to breaking that up in a couple of years.
I like it.
How much money do we got on this?
We'll turn the mics off. We'll talk. I'm willing to put money on all 3 of these. By the way, thanks for asking. Lumber prices. I think it's going to be the latter part, I think, of October of 2023 for me, of lumber prices under 6 months. Pandemic, I'm putting March of 2029. I'm buckling up. We're going to be in this for the long haul. And the Browns, I don't know. I'm somewhere in the year 2040s, I think.
2040.
Yeah.
When you go to 2029, I know this is not the purpose of the podcast, but you just think COVID's going to continue to cycle and different variants, and it's just going to continue to be a challenge?
I do. I am, as you are, many entrepreneurs are, very optimistic.
Sure.
However, continuing to go out like 6 or 9 months or 12 months, we're like, dude, imagine next year at this time, we're going to be fine. And then you're like, well, that didn't happen. And then what do? We adjust our forecast by 12 months.
Yep.
I'm like, forget that.
Yep.
I'm going to go out 5 or 6 years and say, we're going to be in this for the long haul, and we're going to be wearing masks. And if it ends sooner, I'm all for it. It's fine.
That's probably a proper expectation to set, because if you outperform it, you feel good.
Right.
So you gave yourself plenty of runway there.
Lord, I hope I'm wrong. But all right. Mr. Bobby Krueger, thanks, man.
Thanks for the time, Bradley. Yep, of course.
right then, there it was. That was my conversation with Mr. Bobby Krueger of Mavrek Development in Chicago and the Kruger Group in Cleveland, Ohio. Hopefully you found that relevant and interesting and insightful. And if you did, we would love it if you shared it with your network and people on your team, because that's the whole goal here. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help more people. So if you do have suggestions for improvements, do not hesitate to email me directly. We want this to be the best podcast you listen to, and we're always trying to improve it. Feel free to email me directly at bradley@behindyourbacksales.com. Now, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Capital One Trade Credit. Feel free to check out Capital One Trade Credit if you are interested in growing sales, increasing cash flow, decreasing your risk, and leveraging technology to help your customers build more efficiently. As always, my friends, thank you for listening. I know you have very limited time, and I appreciate you spending it with me. We're going to close out like we always do. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.